Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host Gershwin and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we ask the question, how did the Emperor think he was going to give humans power after he created the Space Marines? We're going to be talking about the Council of Terra and the War Council. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K content every single day, and if you have any questions that you guys would like us to answer in a video form, just comment down below. Now with that said, let's get into 40 facts on how the Emperor planned to give humans control of the Imperium. Following the successful conclusion of the Unification Wars, where the Emperor of Mankind unified the warring techno-barbarian tribes of old Earth and created the new Imperium of Man, the Emperor convened the ruling body known as the War Council to manage the execution of the Great Crusade. It was his first step into transferring power back to humanity. A monumental effort to reunite the entire human-settled galaxy under his new Imperium of Man, the War Council effectively became the true ruling body of the Imperium during the early and middle years of the Great Crusade. The Emperor himself sat at the head of the council. At his left hand was Malcador the Sigillite, perhaps the Emperor's greatest ally during the War of Unity, and a psyker whose powers were matched only by those of the Emperor. The rest of the council was composed of administrators drawn from the great ruling aristocratic dynasties of Terra and the Segmentum Solar. Aside from their talent, these men and women were given positions of power in order to solidify peace after being conquered. And when the Emperor forged his alliance with the Mechanicum of Mars in the Treaty of Mars, the Fabricator General of the Mechanicus also claimed a seat on the council. The War Council was also attended by the Patronova of the Navigator Houses, the head of the Navis Nobilite, an ancient organization of mutant Terran nobility, some of the wealthiest and most politically powerful collections of nobles in the Imperium. It was this collection of individuals that the Emperor tasked with governing over his system as he left the homeworld of mankind to lead the Great Crusade. And to ensure loyalty and effectiveness, the Emperor left the legendary Malcador to act as the regent of Terra in his stead. As the Great Crusade progressed, the War Council grew as an inevitable widening vortex of admirals and commanders, generals, sector governors, and ministers of state were added to this administrative apparatus. Below these luminaries were advocates and technocrats responsible for the imperial control of far-flung administrative systems and world regimes with chains of supply and distribution whose scales beggared belief. As the years became decades, each of the Primarchs were discovered and brought into the imperial fold. They were given a seat on the council, as was the chief custodian and captain general of the legal custodes, the Emperor's bodyguard. Yet such men were creatures of war and not politics, and as some of the purely human council members died in battle or through simply old age, they were not always replaced after their death. Sometimes entire seats were left vacant. The average human aristocrats were overshadowed by these superhuman warriors. And then, after the decisive victory during the Ulanor Crusade, when a vast imperial assault destroyed the largest orc empire encountered by man, and solidified the Imperium as a universal power in the galaxy, the Emperor bestowed upon his favorite Primarch, Horus Lupercal, the title of Imperial War Master, and ceded to him control of all of the Imperium's military forces. The Emperor then departed for the homeworld of mankind, and the dungeons deep beneath his great imperial palace, to begin his great work on the creation of a human extension into the Eldar Webway, under a veil of secrecy previously unknown in the Imperium. He drew to him certain advisors and retired to the private vault of his city fortress. Upon his return to Terra, the Emperor called to his side Malcador and the Fabricator General, who had been ruling over the Imperium since his departure. He issued them with new commands. No longer were they to support the military campaigns, as these were now safely in the hands of his sons, the Primarchs, and the newly appointed War Master Horus. The Emperor needed time and all of his focus to be directed at this new great project, which would tie the newborn Imperium together and unite it as no other human union had ever been united. To this end, the Emperor convened the First Council of Terra. Unlike the War Council, of which Horus was now the leader, the Council of Terra would attend to the matters of state and the establishment and maintenance of imperial law across the Mirad worlds of the Imperium. In particular, the Council of Terra was to administrate the establishment of the imperial ties of troops and resources from all the worlds of the Imperium that were required to support the Great Crusade. In effect, the Council of Terra would be entirely in charge of civil government of the Imperium. Malcador was named as the first Lord of the Council, and his powers grew incredibly. The Fabricator General of the Mechanicum of Mars, Calbor Hall, Chief Custodian, Constantine Valdor, and the Master of the Adeptus Astronomica, the Adeptus Astrotelepathica, and the Administratum of the Imperium were also appointed to this council, having established a new governing body of the Imperium to carry out the day-to-day workings of ruling tens of thousands of worlds and trillions of human beings. The Emperor took refuge in his vast laboratories and workshops beneath the Imperial Palace. Unfortunately, while the Emperor was locked away in his subterranean factories, trouble was brewing. The formation of the council proved to be a contentious decision, with the distant Primarchs, who were appalled when news of the formation of the Council of Terra finally reached them in the frontiers of the Great Crusade. Some of the Primarchs took great exception to being ruled by those they deemed less worthy of such an honor than themselves. The less stable Primarchs felt that this was a betrayal of all they had fought and won in the Emperor's name, and that their victories were now counted for nothing. The Primarchs and many of their Astartes felt that it was they who had suffered and sacrificed the most to build the Imperium, and thus it was they who should have had the greatest say in how it was ruled, not a council composed of Terran nobles and faceless bureaucrats. This was one of the many growing resentments that allowed the ruinous powers to affect and corrupt several of the Primarchs, completely ignoring the true purpose of the Council of Terra, to give power to humanity to rule themselves. This new action lent new weight to Horus's argument to several of his brothers that the Imperium had been betrayed by their father. He argued that the Emperor had proved more than willing to turn his back on his sons and generals and give power instead to petty mortal administrators and psychopathic techno-adepts of Mars who lacked the Primarch's brilliance and superhuman abilities. As Horus prepared his rebellion against the Emperor, he convinced himself that petty functionaries and administrators had supplemented the Primarchs and the Astartes within the Imperium they had won. Once, the Imperium had been wholly geared for the war and conquest that was its life's blood since its inception, but now it had become burdened with parasitic exactors and scribes who demanded to know the cost of everything. Bureaucracy was taking over. Red tape, administrators, and clerks were replacing the heroes of the age. Horus argued to his more receptive brothers that unless the Imperium learned to change their ways and its direction, its greatness as an empire would soon be footnoted in history books. Horus feared that everything he and his brother Primarchs had achieved would be a distant memory of a former glory, lost like the ancient civilizations of Terra. It was his hubris and arrogance that led to the War Master's inevitable fall to chaos and the resultant civil war that would consume the entire galaxy, ushering in a new age of darkness that would last for millennia. Yet Horus and his most resentful brothers had completely misunderstood the Emperor's intent in the creation of the Council of Terra. The Council was to become the body of civilian government that would administrate the myriad bureaucratic tasks needed for the survival of a newly formed human interstellar empire. The Emperor was determined that in his Imperium, power would reside with those men and women who were governed by its apparatus, and not with the artificial military elite composed of genetically engineered beings who were so powerful that they already possessed only a very tenacious grip upon their own humanity. The Primarchs and their Space Marines had been created to give life to the Emperor's dream of a united human Imperium. They were not to rule it as a hereditary caste of immortal warriors, imposing their whim upon those they deemed mere mortals. Tragically, the Emperor's vision of a new golden age of mankind would never be realized due to the schemes of the Dark Gods. Following the calamities of the Horus Heresy and the Emperor's interment within the Golden Throne and the sacrifice of Malcador, the Emperor could no longer take any active hand in ruling his realm directly. The role of the Imperial Regent initially fell to Guilliman, the great Primarch of the Ultramarines Legion. It was the Primarch Guilliman who reinvented the Council of Terra, also called the Senatorum Imperialis, and while he based the new organization on the Emperor's former council, ultimately, the governing body was a shadow of its former self. To ensure no rebellions would plague humanity again, the new Council of Terra was designed to work slower and have less power. Ultimately, it might have been this necessary action that contributed to the slow and painful decay of human power in the galaxy. And those were 40 facts on how the Emperor attempted to give power to humanity. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends on Facebook, Reddit, whatever social media you guys use. It really helps out the channel when you do so. So thank you so much for doing that. Now, it's interesting because, like everything in the Imperium, the actual results are the opposite of what was intended. The Emperor wanted a council to rule over humanity, a human council to rule over humanity, and look at what happened. The superhuman being Guilliman ended up taking control. And I'm not just talking about right after the Horus Heresy, I'm talking about now. In today's day and age, now that Guilliman is back, he is leading humanity once again. He's doing it more militaristically, of course, because that's what he was born to do. But ultimately, the Emperor's dream of having humans rule humans is just completely gone. Not to mention that the Space Marines, who were just supposed to conquer and maintain the Imperium safe, ended up becoming even stronger now with the Primaris Marines. So if it was hard to get rid of the Space Marines back then, it must be like 10 times harder now that most chapters are, up to their full power and everything with the Primaris Marines. So again, everything just flipped on the Emperor, and now he's screwed over. Now, my question to you guys is, do you believe that the Emperor's decision from the beginning to have the Space Marines just be a tool was wrong? Should the Emperor have created the Space Marines at all if he knew he was just going to get rid of them like he did the Thunder Warriors? And I don't mean like he was probably going to kill off all the Space Marines. He would probably keep some of them on the frontier. And make sure that any type of orc menace would be destroyed by these Space Marines. So I don't think that he was going to completely destroy all of them. But ultimately, is the Emperor to blame for the destruction of his Imperium? Or is it truly the Chaos Gods? Comment down below. Let me hear your explanations. But yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget we have an Instagram and a Facebook. If you guys want to hit us up with ideas or questions that you guys would like us to create a video for, hit us up on there, or just comment down in the comment section below. Because of our support on Patreon, we've been able to create a little bit more videos, and we're going to be doing giveaways pretty soon for the holiday season. So thank you, patrons. If you want to support us, jump on over there. Link in the description. It's just a simple $1 a month, and it helps us give you guys giveaways at the end of the month, or every month, I should say. Thanks for everything, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Oh, I used to put my freedom